and not, and we know not everyone could come. So the beautifulness of the wonderful people that are here, I'm so happy to have you guys here. I'm so happy to hear what you have to say. And of course, these are big questions. What is the future of screen dance, and things that may not necessarily be able to be answered, right? We're looking at being oracles in this sense, right? Some perhaps these are kind of these opinions are quite ideological in the way that screen dance as a practice is in itself. Anyway, um, we are going to be going through these wonderful people we have with us today. And please feel free to introduce where you are as well. Let us know where in the world you guys are. And afterwards, I'll be proposing a couple of questions, right, for you guys. And then we'll open up to the audience as well. So kicking off, we're going to be kicking off with Sandra. So please, Sandra, welcome. Introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you so much, Amari. Hi guys, I'm Sandra. I'm based in London, UK. I am studying at the University of East London Urban Dance Practice, and I'm actually taking Screw Dance as one of my modules at the moment. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm very blessed to have this opportunity to voice and just to give my opinions on like what I think Screen Dance holds for the future. In this post-pandemic world, we don't know what's going to happen. However, I do believe that screen dance is actually taking over the world, taking over the industry, dance industry a lot. People who have never had to learn about editing and filming have had to learn by force. We've had to learn to use Zoom, to use all of these different platforms. And I feel that it's only going to keep growing. There's no way it's going to retract. There's no way it's going to go back to completely, just seeing dance in a theatre or, nothing to do with screen dance. But I really feel that more people are going to come in the industry. More people in my generation are taking a lot more interest, especially me. I wasn't really interested that much in screen dance until I actually started studying it and learning and seeing that it's a whole nother language, seeing that actually there's so much more you can do with screen dance, not only with choreography, but with the different angles, with the different shots, the different editing. So I really feel like it's just going to keep growing. I feel like this generation is going to, build up and help people outside of screen dance to really believe and I guess respect as well dance in itself and art in itself. So yeah, that's what I feel like. And in terms of representing people and practices, I feel that it's going to represent not only dancers but different types of artists as well. And there's going to be different genres. At the moment, I've seen more, I guess, contemporary. I've seen more contemporary screen dances, but I really feel that urban styles are going to come into it a lot more. Yeah, I come from more of a urban and contemporary background, but I see the interest that it takes, especially like in documentaries, crossing over into Black Lives Matter, different social issues, and people really using screen dance as a way to, present their ideas and really voice their opinion. And yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I'm really excited to see what the future holds. Again, I definitely believe that it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Wicked. So yeah, we're gonna go straight on, guys. Yeah, so feel free as we're talking here, write down some questions, things that pop up or in mind, and that we can maybe propose after everyone has finished. Let's go on to Antoine. Welcome.
Hello. So my name is Antoine Monk. I'm a film director and choreographer based in London. And yeah, what a special year it has been. And it's true that there is something very special about screen dance. And precisely as Sandra was saying, we were able to see how much it has expanded already just after 1 year of that new challenge. And there are different possibilities, but first, in a sense of the ramifications or how some things have slightly changed within this period. I'm thinking of dance film festivals, as usually I was big on it and always loved to travel and stuff like that. But the reality was that whether in terms of time or often in terms of resources, it was often difficult to actually go to all of them, and not really something that everyone was able to do. While just last year, and that definitely carries on this year, so many dance film festivals were actually moved onto the digital space. And by that, that means that so many people, just like right now across the globe, were instantly connected and able to actually share different ideas, different ways of seeing screen dance throughout the world. And also, even in terms of networking as well, I've seen a kind of easy access, in a sense of some room being created for discussion, again, just like it's happening right now. And so for that, yeah, it's been quite an amazing, in the sense of giving more people accessibility to that platform, to really experience different point of view of how screen dance is created and the impact that it had and will have across the world. So in terms of specific, so last year, directed a dance film which is called Reunited, and the switch, the change and specificity that is directly due of this challenge was that there was some interactive elements that was actually put into the mix. And so yeah, so basically, to explain it briefly, there is a kind of introduction, and then you can select the character story that you want to experience. And that little change actually create something that integrates the audience participation. And we had some amazing feedback so far. So I reckon in the future, that's something that we will actually implement much further, and as well more often, as it creates that instant connection and really integrates the audience within the experience, and in a sense personalize it even. And also another specific, recently shot, is not done yet, but it's in post-production, but we shot a XR dance film. So XR stands for extended reality. And the challenge was to actually deal with the technology, to understand it better, as well as to see its future application. And it had become more and more popular and kind of mainstream thanks to Mandalorian from Disney. But in a sense of the dance film aspect of it, to actually immerse a performer into a virtual world can be something that would be integrated as the technology itself is being developed into something much more accessible to many more people. So yeah, so just to conclude, we can already see like the different possibilities, the different ways of how dance film can actually integrate not only the audience, but connects that bridge between performer and the people viewing at home, as well as the creators. And yeah, this is kind of an exciting time to be creating stuff.
That's amazing. Thank you, Anton, for that. Yeah, man, the future is closer than you think, right?
That's so true.
The more we start to actually learn about perhaps the technology and the availability of that to us in this current age, it's like, oh, well, that was actually there already before we even found it ourselves, right? Okay, all right. So I've written my notes. Hold on a second. Okay, let's go on to Vilma. Hey, Vilma. Nice to see you.
Hello. My name is Vilma Tihilä, and I'm a dance filmmaker from Finland. It's very exciting to be here, and nice to meet you all. I thought to start with few questions. What is behind the words? What is before the words? What is it that one can only know by feeling it or experiencing it? What is it which cannot be explained with words? Or what is the vocabulary for a language with no words? These are a few of the questions I often return in my work. And for me, the potential and the excitement and the challenge in dance filmmaking is to find the ideas and the techniques and the combinations which deal with these questions in practice. For me, the key approach in this practice is poetics. Dance film in its physical and visual and oral languages has a poetic approach, and through that I think it offers quite radical and self-reflective, fluid and innovative strategies to address questions in meaning making or communication and storytelling. And I think this is the power of Screendance. Through these poetic strategies, Screendance can challenge the thinking and the doing in different fields, in the fields of cinema and dance and media arts, visual arts, and so on. And thinking of like everyday life and the visual era we are living in now has really made me think how the imagery we are creating and absorbing effects on our being and behavior. And in my opinion, we need more soft and accepting and listening visuals. We need to somehow learn how to ask with the images, not to possess with the images. And in deconstructing, questioning, and challenging the norms through the poetry of movement and image, I feel the drive. For me, this poetics in dance film links with feminist issues, with intersectional perspectives and fluid mechanics of passing dichotomies, categories, and roles assigned, asking not only what, but more importantly, how is the key. And having an ongoing conversation about the meanings, the working methods, the hierarchies and the roles, the responsibilities and the objectives is important. The way of working, being in the process, forming and organizing working groups becomes actually a part of the final film. And in communicating all of this, we need, of course, language, words, meanings, visions, experiences, action. And this brings me back to where I started. What is behind the words? What is before the words? What is it that one can only know by feeling it or experiencing it? What is it which cannot be explained with words? Thanks.
I was writing down the questions. I was like, yeah. I remember there was one time at the Frame Rush festival, and we had an artist called Clea Fimosa, and she said the words that we use, the idea that the camera captures, it shoots, all of these really harsh words to kind of describe how we even just like get our material, And so yeah, I'm hearing you on that one. I got 5 questions for that we can't even ask today. Okay. All right, let's move on. So we're on to Alice. Hey Alice, nice to see you.
Hello everyone. Yeah, I'm Alice. I'm a filmmaker and I kind of work predominantly with dance artists and in the creative arts sector. And I think pre-pandemic, I was filming a lot of social content for live shows, more trailers, more kind of short documentaries looking into creation processes, fly on the wall type things, which I mean, I love doing. I love all that type of work. And over the past year, obviously things have changed quite a bit. And I think, yeah, but it's opened up some different opportunities and kind of opened up some collaborations on really great Screendance specific works. So I've really gotten involved in kind of more ideas and planning shoots a bit more than the other type of work that I'm more used to. So I may be coming into this on a different viewpoint to kind of screen dance specific, but I'm loving the type of screen dance works that I'm doing at the moment, and I really hope to develop that. So I mean, I'm looking forward to getting back into the studio and to working with live works again, but I'm also looking forward to seeing where the path takes me down screen dance, into screen dance works, and kind of what I can create and what can be created through collaborations. So yeah, I think what I'm noticing is that there may be a bit more scope to interlink live work and film. And I feel like there's kind of a huge amount of live work, which is standalone, great like live work, which is just, you go to see at the theatre, and that's amazing. And I think it's the same with screen dance, and there's some great standalone screen dance works, but maybe I'm not seeing this as much, but there's not necessarily too much connection between the two. And I feel like there's a good opportunity to kind of start combining the two within one process. And I know it is already happening, and I know I've already worked on a few projects which have been doing this, but I think there's definitely more scope for this to happen. So, I mean, I don't mean altering live work in any way. That's so important, and I love going to theatres and love watching live work. But I think potentially to use the ideas and the themes and the materials from a live show and create a screen dance work that connects or complements the live show, I think that could be a great avenue to go down. And I don't mean replicating a live show in any way for film. This would be kind of the case that, so it wouldn't be the case that kind of once you've seen one, you don't need to see the other, but rather the case that one supports the other. And again, that doesn't mean literally that they have to be shown in the same night or side by side. It's just maybe another outcome from a creation process that has a different purpose, a different route, and can be used in different ways. And yeah, we all know films can reach a wider audience and kind of create better accessibility, which is super crucial. And yeah, if the ideas and themes that are taken from a live show that can be put into kind of a short film version, I just think it would be an amazing support. So you see the film and it encourages you or makes you interested to see a live show, and vice versa. So yeah, they would kind of each be new experiences in themselves, and used for different purposes. And I think as this year have shown, kind of screen dance has always been on the up, like it's always been developing, it's always been getting more and more. But yeah, this last year has just rocketed it into the forefront. And I think as people have delved into the filming side of things, yeah, people's eyes have been open to the possibilities that the camera can lend and the other things that can be shown through the eye of a lens. And I think a whole new array of like visual ideas could be created that aren't necessarily doable in a live show situation, but would really complement it well, would complement a live show well. And I like the idea that there could be, say, like an umbrella of different outcomes from one initial idea that stretch out to create different experiences, reach different audiences in different ways. But yeah, they support one another and interlink. So yeah, I'm coming definitely from working with a lot of live shows, and I'd love to get back into that, but I want to push screen dance and I want to see what can be created. And I think although I'm sure it is happening, companies are doing this, yeah, I think there's a potential for more collaboration and yeah, using same ideas to create different things. That makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Oh, that makes perfect sense. And the thing is that even when we make single screen works, there's always multiple outputs, right? From our filmmakers out there, we know we ain't just making the one for the Apple ProRes for the cinema screen. We're also making a H.264 for the YouTube. We're also making a 1:1 aspect ratio for the Instagram, and that's just for one piece, you know. So it's good to think about what types of screens we're putting these things on, and also how we're integrating these things to make multiple lives, multiple souls of this idea for it to have longevity beyond just single screen. Thank you for that, Alice. Wicked. Okay, let's go on. Last but not least, Sir James, talk to us.
Hey, yeah, so I'm James Williams. I'm an ex-dancer and circus performer, now fully transitioned into cinematography. I kind of split my time now between dance film and screen dance and the commercial world. So I try and balance the two out, give myself a little bit of scope. Yeah, so I've been preparing what I wanted to say here over and over again, even right up until turning on the webcam here. Yeah, it's just so many versions of this, and really the question, what is the future of screen dance post-COVID, was something I really had to think about. I had so many just knee-jerk reactions to that, and most of them kind of skirted around the edges of the topic and realistically just indulged my own prejudices about screen dance. And I had to really search for what I thought the root of that question actually was. Like I say, I wrote a few versions of this, and I think I've maybe come down to something that's a little bit of an uninhibited answer, so we'll see how that goes. So what do I think the future of screen dance is post-COVID? Honestly, I think it's the same as it was prior to the pandemic. Given my experiences to date, working as a cinematographer, working in screen dance prior to and during the pandemic, I don't see the pandemic as a catalyst for something that's changed the future of screen dance, but instead it's just worked as an accelerant of the same future. So essentially springboarding us 5 to 10 years ahead of maybe where we would have been if we'd have continued from 2019 without a pandemic. So maybe to explain that a little bit better, I think since sort of the mass introduction of modern cinema, the public has been increasingly guided towards the consumption of like screen-based art, really, really slowly at first. And it shared the limelight with traditional theatre and live performance. But if we look at where we were in 2019 on the eve of the pandemic, all of a sudden we see every single live performance art weighing up the utilization of digital integration in some way, either in their development process, in their presentation, or just in their marketing outreach, like we were just talking about with Alice. So for the direction of screen dance, it's always been kind of like I wanted it to be something that is widely acceptable and an invaluable creative option for choreographers and dance companies. Sort of a creative decision that's considered right at the beginning of the choreography development, and it's weighed up as an option for live, as an option against live presentation. So the screen presentation would sit along things like outdoor festivals, site-specific work, or a traditional proscenium arch. Alongside that would be screen presentation. That's sort of the dream, right? Is that all of those things are equally valid options. When the pandemic shut everything down, all it did was force the industry to look at screen as that valid option, as, okay, we have to go there. Like, that's the option now. So I don't think it necessarily changed where we were going. I think we were going there anyway. It just accelerated us exponentially to get there. And this last bit is maybe where I get a little bit more predictive. I think that dance is about to face kind of a new birth into the public eye, much like it did when TV and network competitions like Britain's Got Talent kind of jump-started the influx of young dancers about like 15 years ago. More screen dance means more representations of the dancing body are shared digitally than ever before. Mass access to dance forms which have never been easier. More collaborations with dancers. Collaborations with dancers are higher than they will ever be before. And the question that this topic has left me with is, how will dancers decide to represent themselves and their art form with this newfound position of digital exploration and exposure? So that's where I'll leave you.
I think, yeah, I have nothing to say. These are all head nod provocations, you know, and anyone back of anyone's neck just getting a workout today. Wicked. Okay, I'm going to start off with a question, and I'm going to open it straight up to the audience because I want to give time for us to propose some things. But yeah, I think everyone's working in very, very different ways. And I think the first question I wanted to ask is, and I want to keep thinking about the future now, not necessarily what has happened and what we have done, but what kind of work do we want to be seeing in the future? I'm thinking like, is there something maybe, or if we can't imagine that, is there something that exists now that we need more of? Or is there something that doesn't exist yet that we need to invent? And I know we've tapped on this just a little bit in a couple of people's provocations. So I just wondered if we can expand on that for ourselves. What do we want to see more of? What needs to be out there in the future? Anyone want to tackle that one?
I feel like, well, for example, what Alice was saying in the sense of integrating dance film as part of something else, whether it's a dance performance or some other type of exhibition. I feel like it'll be quite interesting because then the dance film will stand on its own, but as well as being part of something greater. And then it kind of create that further, well, that kind of complex, nearly organism, so to speak, in which we can explore and kind of experience it in a different way. So in that sense, that would be quite interesting to explore in what way it can actually be integrated. Things that have already been done in the sense of having it as a background, for example, as a stage classic. But I feel like there may be some new form, new ways of that dance film, well, a dance film to actually intervene within the creation of a different work.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Does anyone want to add to that? I was actually thinking on top of that what's quite interesting. You were talking about, you said XR.
Yeah, extended reality. Yeah,
that's the first time I've heard about that before, right? And I imagine that takes a bit of pre-production time to consider how to make some of those things work, or do you just kind of, kind of to really have conversations? And I don't know if anyone else feels this, but do we feel that screen dance, dance film, video dance, the practices that we enter within this realm have less of that time than any other practice? Or is it literally just me thinking that? Like theatrical dance film, dance theater, 6-week rehearsals, 2-week rehearsals. And I haven't personally ever had that with a dance film work. But I don't know if you guys have, or if you fight for that time, or if things are quite quick in comparison to works you've done in other forms.
I would say, before someone else take on the mic, I would say it's often because the dance film itself, it's being considered as second hand, as not something that should be developed fully, which often is just not often, always a mistake. But when the realization that it can, well, it should be a piece on its own, or like I was saying, and Alice as well, in the sense of integrating into something else, but we do need that time to develop, to actually get into the intricacy and mostly the details, because obviously dance choreography will take some time to be developed, but also the film technique that can convey the best the idea that we want to actually share with the audience. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree that there's that time, that pre-planning is so lacking within dance. I feel like there's so much of, okay, let's just film something and see what's created from it, rather than, okay, let's really set it up. And there are of course projects that do have that time and do have that input beforehand, but maybe it's just me, I'm coming into it maybe a little bit kind of later into the screen dance form. But yeah, I definitely need to make sure I remember to schedule in that time, because it takes up so much time. And then I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, all that time I haven't charged for it, I haven't thought about that. All these meetings, like, gosh, they're really adding up. And yeah, that whole rehearsal time, pre-time, yeah, it's important, definitely. I'll also just add, sorry, just something that I'd love to see more, and I think Antoine was also going along this line as well, is animation, like bringing in a completely different form of art into it. And I've seen a few films recently which have had brilliant animation and art, actual proper art in there, like artist work. I love that. I'm in no way an animator, but I think, yeah, collaborating, it's bringing lots of people in to create one big thing. I think it's great. Yeah.
Oh, that's wicked. Yeah, my favorite animation, right? My favorite dance moment in that animation is the scene in Dumbo, Elephants on Parade, when Dumbo, like, I think Dumbo gets drunk, isn't that? Dumbo, and then has these hallucinations, and it is the most, watch it again. If you guys haven't seen that in a while, watch that scene again. The old original Dumbo, guys. And let that just blow your mind. Anyway, sorry.
Dumbo is a dance film. You heard it here.
James, were you going to jump in? Sorry.
Yeah, this is where I get myself in trouble, because I know you've kind of baited me with this question, because we've talked about this before. I think I'll go back to your original question rather than tagging on to someone else's, because I think it converges. So what I would like to see more of is dance film thought about as a film, produced as a film, presented as a film. Because at the moment, what I feel like and my experience of Screendance at the moment is that it's dance film made by dancers, produced by dancers, developed by dancers, and then presented as a film. So for me, there's a big disconnect, and everyone's talking about, oh, it's great to have all of these collaborations and we need to collaborate more, but actually a lot of my involvement up until very, very, very recently has been that it actually isn't that collaborative of a process. It's dancers dictating how to make a film with no real input from filmmakers, no real education about film. And so, yeah, I would like to see more of dance film developed as a film collaboratively.
Yeah, and I would quickly say that it's, unfortunately, you're right, James, it often comes down to education and sometimes, so it's also a pro and a con, is that dance film now, it's much more accessible to everyone, which is absolutely beautiful, but it still requires some very specific tools and understanding of filmmaking as well to fully create something that has that integrity in both in dance and film. And yeah, unfortunately it's often about thinking about the normal process of a film. So that will include creating a storyboard, for example, having a pre-raise or a pre-shoot, even in the rehearsal room, to actually edit your entire film so that you see what it can look, or etc., etc. So many different aspects. So that's why I kind of link back to what we were saying. It takes time.
And that's go on, Vilma. Go.
Yeah, I was just gonna continue from what James you said. Like I think one of the questions that I keep on asking myself, like every day that I work, is how a dance film can only exist as a film. Like how to make the translation. It also kind of links with what you were saying, Alice. Like if we come from a dance background and think in a way in stage logic, and with the logic of a choreography, is like, I think it's the interesting part is how to make the translation into a film, into images, because for example, a certain movement on stage might make an effect of, I don't know, whatever, and then to create that same effect, if you want to do the same effect but you're using film, you might, you know, go, if there is like a, I don't know, big movement, there is a jump, there is something big, and then you want to make the same effect in film, it might be that you have to go to close up, you have to kind of go into the detail to get the in a way the feeling of the physicality.
The same largeness, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's the translation process that's the beef.
You just gave me an idea. I thought about, as Vilma was saying, that to me it seems like, because there can almost be like a line that I'm the filmer, you're the dancer, hey, let's come and collab, that's it. But what about if it integrates more of like, I'm becoming a dance, like for this project, I'm going to become a dancer if I'm a filmer, and I'm going to become a filmer if I'm a dancer. So then everyone gets each other's understanding. Then it's more of a collaboration than a two-way thing where it's just like you just go up to the line, that's it. But let's actually cross over the line now. Let's actually cross over and try and understand each other's backgrounds.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I'm just gonna, on top of this now, just to bring another question into it. Now, we talked about education, right? And so now we're seeing lots of Screendance undergraduate courses, postgraduate courses, and I know Vilma studied with me on the Masters in Screendance. Sandra, you're doing a course now. James, you've taught with me in the past. But I just think, like, I always think to myself, well, what do screen dancers need to know? You know, like, and obviously most of the time I end up teaching dancers how to make dance films. A lot of those courses are on dance courses, not on film courses. So I always end up kind of coming into a certain trajectory into that. And I find that I'm actually at the moment, I'm just teaching film. This is at the moment now that we can't get into the studio. I find that I'm actually really just teaching film to these guys, right? And I can't get them to embody the camera, right? But so I'm trying to think of those sorts of things. But yeah, what do you think? Like, do you think that these courses are contributing? How can they contribute to the future of what we make as artists? And yeah, have the courses helped at all? Big question in a way, but yeah, I wondered if anyone wants to add to that at all.
I think teaching what collaboration is would be huge. Really understanding what a collaboration is, because it took me a long time. When I was coming from dance, I trained as a dancer, and then I came out and I worked as a dancer, and then I did a little smidge of choreography on the side and some small shows of my own, and then I transitioned out to film. And when I transitioned out to film, it took me so long, like 4 years probably, of doing my own films and building up small projects with clients before I actually understood how to work as part of a team and it not just be the James show, and I think that came from being a dancer. I feel like a choreographer runs the show, right? If you're putting a show on in a theatre, the choreographer does everything. They do all the rehearsals. They probably have applied for the funding right from the get-go, right. Maybe alongside a producer if they're lucky. Right. They've run the show right from the beginning. It's not probably until 3 days before the show that they even meet with like a lighting technician in the theatre. All of those little tiny collaborations get sprinkled in right at the end, like, oh yeah, we'll just do a little bit of that. But the choreographer is running the show. That's not a collaboration. So you have to unlearn that, and I think that's the educational part of it for me, because film is just a team. It's just a team. Without the right team, the film doesn't get made right. That's what I feel, and that's what I feel working with a lot of dancers, is that please just understand the process of collaboration. It isn't about diluting your idea, it's about working together to enhance the idea.
Couldn't agree more. I think because right now I think I am in the stage that Vilma show has been going on for a few years, and I just really want to learn how to break out from doing every part of the work in each part of the production, and like who said it, like, yeah, the collaboration, like bringing in more brains and discussing about the things and developing the whole film and the whole idea and each scene and each character together with the group can just bring everything so much more further, and then one person is not going to be like dead from working too much because she or he is doing the job of 12 or 20 people. Yeah, I would also add kind of teamwork or collaboration, or just understanding that part of the filmmaking into Screendance education, if something should be added.
Yeah.
And Sandra, what are your thoughts on that? Because you're currently in a course right now, how's that feeling?
Yeah, definitely. Me coming from a dance background, I don't know too much about film. So learning about film, kind of hands-on and just about film, has been very helpful. And I believe that when I collaborate in the future, I'll be able to understand more. And I think it comes from actually humbling yourself, like what these guys are saying, that, it's not just about you. And it's very easy. If you're a leader, especially if you're a choreographer, a dancer who's always wanting to get the spotlight, all of these things, it builds up to, oh wait, I just want it to be about my ideas. But it's just about humbling yourself and actually trusting people and realizing that other people have good ideas as well. And that when you compromise, doesn't mean you're weak. It actually means you're stronger. And it actually means that, different people's ideas, people's ideas can create a whole new world, a whole new language. And you can create something something to build up the whole industry just by actually taking a step back and saying, you know what, yeah, your ideas are just as good as mine. Let's create something good together. So yeah.
Yeah, I also totally agree. Absolutely everything that you've all just said it replicates my experience as well. But with the question of what Screendance doing, what is it useful? I think the last thing you said, Omari, I can't remember, is the question of
the education and learning about it, maybe inside of
is it helpful? Like my experience, I got into filming through doing my undergraduate dance course. And in my third year, they brought in a new module, Screendance, and I know the person that ran that module way back then is in this chat, so hi. But in that respect, it massively helped, because even though it was super new, we didn't know what we were doing. It was a big test. What came out of it came out of it. But in that respect, like it propelled me into film and dance. Dance I loved. I wanted to be a dancer. I diverted. I went into film and I've connected the two, and it's brilliant. But yeah, the as you're learning to do film, you're not going through a big film course and learning all the intricacies and all the techie stuff that you're meant to know. You're kind of just, once the module's done, you're kind of teaching yourself, and there's so much burden and weight on you to do everything, and you're like, oh, I should know that. You've asked me a question, I don't know what the answer to that question is. Like, you have to learn, and like, it's never ending, the amount you know, the amount you have to know. So having people by the side of you who may know the answer to that, and you can ask and lean on and collaborate with, I think so important. And it's just learning to ask for help, and spread out all the things that you're meant to know, and just have help. Yeah, definitely. And I'm still learning to do that, definitely.
No, that's what it's all about. Yeah, you never do anything on your own, and things happen so much quicker and faster. And when you are able to build up people you can have a trust with, and that takes time to build that as well. So no, it's a wonderful thing. So let's go on to some audience questions. We got some beautiful things coming in. We've got something from Simon Ellis here. Hey, Simon. So the question is, how do you all think Screendance collaboration is distinctive from other forms of collaboration in and outside of film? Screendance collaboration and its distinctiveness from other forms. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Is it about what I would like Screendance collaboration to be, or what I think it is currently?
I think It's about if there is a current collaboration process that is distinctive from other forms of collaboration.
I think the current process, in my experience, is that the collaboration is minimal. But the current process, in my experience, is that the dance side of it, so the choreographer and maybe the theatre producer or whoever is commissioning the film to be made, they act as a client. That's how the process feels to me. It's not a collaboration between two entities, a choreographer and a director, or a choreographer and a cinematographer, for example. It's not two people joining to make a production, to make a film, to make a single piece of art. It's the choreographer hiring the filmmaker to make their vision. So it acts less as a collaboration to make something, and more of a client service transfer. That's how it feels at the moment. In most cases, there are obviously some wonderful collaborations that I've had the privilege of being involved in, but for the most part, that's how it feels to me at the moment.
Yeah, I hear that, James, as well. And I think that when we work together and the work we do with the Motion Dance Collective, we try and foster what is the way we need to work for this film. Forget all our practice that we knew kind of before. These are all the 12, 15 different roles that a director does. And for this film, we only actually need these 5 here. And we come together and go, right, what is that for all of us? And we can have this. Like, are we going to do a warm-up before we shoot everybody? You know, you're going to be holding the gimbal for 45 minutes. You better circle your shoulders 8 times with us. You know, but I feel like we mold the mode to move our moving images. We can change it. We can come together and go, actually, for this shoot, let's try something different here and let's work out what we're going to do within this space. And so, like, even seeing Katrina McPherson, I know you're in the house as well. Hey, Katrina, even seeing Katrina on stage with the camera changed my whole life. You know, to be like, what? You can actually have the camera go onto stage, moving around, interacting with the performers, you know, and it opened up a new way of thinking about how we practice. But in dance, it's not very different from maybe the ways we learn dance. I grew up in jams personally, not contact improvisation jams, more hip hop jams where we just come into a space and ask each other questions rather than a teacher standing in front of me and teaching me a class. And that process is like something that I think happens within all of the practices in some way. But as soon as the money gets more, maybe we kind of move towards a way that we go, well, for this amount of money, we need to have this sort of practice. I don't know. That's just me talking out loud. Anyway, questions. Let's go back. Is this a question? We have something from Yaren Lee. Hey, Yaren. Maybe understanding camera's view and getting used to being in front of the camera and communicating it as well. Because South Korea doesn't have any screen dance or dance film courses yet. So when I tried to collaborate with Korean dancers, they said that they're having some difficulties being in front of the camera. Oh, very interesting. Has anyone had any experience with that perhaps, or being in front of the camera and difficulties with performers?
Well, I could just mention that right now I'm doing a dance film in collaboration with the dancer. I'm the cinematographer and the director, and she's the dancer and the choreographer. And we've kind of found a way to work together with the camera, so that because you know the expression in the camera, in the framing, can be very specific. Like if you're really in a close-up, even just, you know, opening your eyes or just, you know, making a tiny shift with your eyes might be too much. In a way, it might tell too much. Or if you're a tiny person in a huge wide shot, it might require just like the way more expression and movement than what we would be used to doing on stage. So we've kind of worked around that performing for camera thing by trying out things and really kind of also communicating. Like it has to be really clear whether like what's the size of the shot, and then whenever we've shot something, she comes to watch it, and then we maybe do it again, or it's just also doing and seeing and trying and doing again. In a way, having that rehearsal time, what you, Amari, mentioned earlier, that when we shoot, it's not the one day and one go and one shot, but just like bringing the camera into the rehearsals, or if there is more time, to use the time to these kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. It's really about studying those subtleties, those details that are really possible with dance film, to, just like you just said, Vilma, in a sense of the different framing that are possible when you move into close-up, to really communicate that and work with the performer, so that the performance is specific to what is being shot, and also that preparation into knowing that a scene will be repeated a few times, and to actually build the emotion, not just for a specific moment in the choreography, but accordingly to the entire storyline, so that when you shot that, the emotion corresponds to what it should be within the film. So I would say, yeah, it's really to go into those details, and yeah, that's actually part of the rehearsal process. That's why the camera should be brought in as early as possible, so that the performer can actually get comfortable with it. As it's true, it can be quite intimidating, because it's not just the camera, it's an entire crew behind and looking at them and the pressure as well when you hear that action and everyone's kind of relying on you. So it's just to kind of, for some, it may be difficult. So if you go through the process step by step, so that there is a full understanding of what is needed in the moment, and they have time to adapt as well, would be quite nice.
Yeah, because it's such a different process dancing for theatre than it is for film. The idea that we have to be able to warm up, cool down so many different times. I've heard from a lot of dancers that the most times they got injured were during film shoots or photography shoots. So they're doing the photography shoot for their main show, and they've got to do that one jump that they only do in the show once, 27 times on concrete floor of the photography studio, right? And then they injure themselves before they even get back to the show. But how do we train for film? How do we train to be ready to perform for film? Because it's a totally different process.
So
outside in the cold and all these things.
For this, unfortunately, you're actually right. So many dancers, performers are actually being injured in shoots. And at times, it may be the fact that a film crew may not be as educated, in the sense of, exactly as you said, that the body needs that time to warm up. And once it's warm, then if it cools down, then that would mean possible injuries. So if everything, like the shot lists as well as the details of the scheduling of the day, is actually well done, then those elements are being taken into account, so that the shot, for example, the close-up, the details are being put together, and the action one, the jumps and all of that, the same thing, so that we can truly benefit from the warm-up and a body who is fully able to actually deliver the work without obviously having any injuries, because yeah, that's never good.
Yes, Harmony, you jumping in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we have a question or a comment from Claire and Gita. They raised their hands a moment ago.
Yeah, or Gita, do you want to go first?
You were first. I saw you.
Okay. All right. Oh, first of all, Amari, I so want We Mold the Mode like as a poster, like on my wall. I so love that. But there's been a lot of mention of accessibility and over the course of this entire talk. And while on one count, I feel that yes, people are able to see more dance film. There are a lot more venues for that. I still think that there's a lot that needs to be done as far as who are we seeing on screen and who actually has the tools to create work or even have the tools to engage in such a collaboration. I was actually speaking with a colleague of mine yesterday who's a dance teacher, like I also teach as well. And while some people have said, and I've said, regrettably said this myself, like that this time's leveled the playing field, it's also exposed, like on the contrary, it's exposed a lot of inequities. Like we'll see, like maybe if we're teaching a ballet class, maybe you know, one student has an entire studio that their parents have built them in their garage, whereas another student only has like a small space on the side of a room, and like someone else is in that room. There's still those inequities that exist, and that's still that barrier of access that exists. And so when we see people like who are, I mean, filming themselves, who are essentially teaching themselves filmic language, like this is their like a way in. And unlike the past where films had to be commodified or like had to be conformed to some side of cinema kind of it's morning, some kind of cinematic screening, there's a much more, to me, that there's much more leeway as far as like production value that can be seen. Like, I mean, in San Francisco Dance Film Festival's case, because we went online, the films that we select don't have to conform to those cinematic settings. And so we are seeing films that are shot on an iPhone, and the priority of the festival, you know, has really shifted into like, okay, here are films that people can't see anywhere else. And now, I mean, partially because we are seeing these films in online screenings again and again and again, like we're probably going to see Navigation for another year, which, I mean, no complaints here. But because a lot of those films are being seen, now is an opportunity where like, okay, what are we not seeing? Who are we not seeing? And can we share that perspective and encourage more creation from that perspective as well?
Right. Yeah, very much so. I definitely agree with that one. Yeah. I just agree. I just agree. That wasn't necessarily a question, right? It was just a lovely a statement in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have anyone else's
yeah, does anyone
take
have
on
any
that, and like,
thoughts?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. Should I go? Yeah, I think the difference in quality of film, yeah, has definitely been seen through festivals and stuff. And I love the fact that smaller productions, even productions that have no budgets, nothing to work with, have been able to be shown in online film festivals. And I mean, this is someone who works with I think quite small budgets, kind of compared to maybe the very bigger production budgets that you see. And I think it's quite hard to see the two next to each other in a way, because then yeah, it just highlights the huge difference. And that's, I mean, that is it, isn't it? Different people have different money to play with. But it just comes down to what can be created. It's not all about the gear, it's not all about the money, it's like what can be created with what you've got. And I think some of the films that have come out with very little support, very little backing, very little money, have been incredible, and I love them. And I think it's great in a way to see that, and hopefully that the films maybe with lesser budget have had the chance to be shown, can then propel them on and to get other funding, or to work with other people who, yeah, that can build it up. I don't know if that answers anything. It's just, yeah.
No, I think that's a very, very good point, because the thing is, everyone's got the tools now. Everyone's got the tools. When people say, "Oh, I don't," the kids don't have access to the video stuff from the school. Well, they've all got phones in that respect to make work in that vibe. And that's why we're seeing so much happening, because it's quite easy to make work, but it's very hard to value it. I always think that we need to maybe return to analog, right? Look, you've got this piece of film, and this is all you've got to shoot with. Imagine, you know, even when we get oh my goodness, look at this. The photo Polaroid. The Polaroid photos, right? The value we take in going, okay, we're only going to get 8 of these. So what do we actually take? And so I actually, because I think we're a bunch of millennials in here, and I don't know, has anyone in this group worked with, at the panel, worked with analog yet? I know, James, you're building some cameras now at the moment, right?
Yeah, I've built 3 Super 8s over lockdown, so I've kind of been playing with that. But I mean, if we're talking about barrier to entry, I mean, analog, you know, you're talking about £100 for 3 minutes of Super 8 film, something like that, to get developed. Like it just goes through the roof in terms of barrier to entry with that. But the value, I understand the point of the value of what we're shooting.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Because yeah, I actually started with analog back in the days. I'm old. But I understand, Omari, that's so true that there are some value despite of it being accessible, and because the accessibility can be used in terms of education and understanding the different aspects, because most phone now has got even a pro version of video, I mean. And even with an old phone, as long as it can shoot, you can learn so much about lighting, about contrast, about all of those ISO, etc., basic in film making. But yet, later on, when you move into creating a piece, that value, that sense of value, is so crucial.
Right, the Samsung S21 now shoots in 8K. Why? It's got a 1080p screen. You can't even watch it. Anyway, Geeta, let's go to you. Sorry.
Well, I've now gotten sidetracked by the discussion about the Gen Xers and how we're the slacker generation. Having the chat next to this is very much always exploding my brain. I can't cope. Yeah, I think it's really hard for me to link this back, but I swear it does connect. I was thinking about this idea of you know, the future that we're building this on, and we were talking about the tracks that we're using, the dance world, the film world, how we integrate them. And something that I worry about in the future, and that's probably quite UK specific as well as some shared concerns, is that we are going to be coming out of the pandemic. Hopefully there'll be an economic impact there that will impact on the art sector. We're looking at Brexit, and that sits for me very closely to entwined with the fact that I don't think dance film has very much of its own infrastructure. A lot of what we do is based on other infrastructures, and a lot of that is dance, and a lot of that is things like universities. And both of those, particularly in the UK, are going to get a massive hit from Brexit. And so some of the infrastructure that we use and rely on is going to go away. I think I want to hope that there is also some potential in that even though universities and dance organizations are actively trying to diversify, to open themselves up to things, there are also inhibiting factors in those because they're the old grown structures. And so maybe there is a hope for some creative destruction in this. And I kind of have to hang on to that because otherwise Brexit just makes me want to do something and it's not good. But yeah, it's really interesting because this is a thought that has been rolling around for me, the fact that we're relying on other infrastructures because we don't necessarily have our own, and sometimes that produces really good things because we can lean on film and take from here and infuse there and borrow from this and bring over to something else. But we're going to lose some stuff, and how do we keep things going, and how do we retain and find and then use it to find other homes, places, nooks and crannies that we can use, and how, you know, maybe not the slacker generation, but then other people can go and find other resources that we can then use to make it brighter and more beautiful and more weird and more different.
Here, definitely.
I'm going to lean into the I'm a slacker thing now.
Anyone want to add on that before I have a look at loads of questions? Can we save this chat? I have a fear we need to save this chat and like put it on Facebook and continue to answer some of these questions, because the whole chat should just go in the journal, Harmony. Look at this. Okay, so I've got a question. I got a question here from Katrina. Do people think that the cult of the individual that is perhaps encouraged by social media works against a true collaborative process? Also, do festivals perhaps work against a different way of working by still insisting on credits being such as director, choreographer, dancer, etc., and find it hard to accept more non-hierarchical process? So let's look at this first one, social media. Does this stop a more collaborative process because it maybe increases the cult of the individual? Any thoughts on that from anyone?
Well, I would say quickly, it's always depends on how it's being used. In my case, I don't really use much. And I actually find it beautiful because when I use it, it's because other people have tagged me in stuff that I've done with them. And then it's actually kind of push forward that collaborative aspect of it. So it's from the social media aspect, I would say it's simply comes down to how we want to use it. If we want to push one individual forward, of course, it's going to be just kind of idealistic. But if there is that teamwork, that's true collaboration and understanding the role of each other, then social media can still be a beautiful tool.
Like it's just as much as pushing other people forward as well as just yourself. Vilma?
Yeah, I think actually this question links quite a lot with what Gita was saying, or just these kind of crediting different people. It's a tradition from film world, or the field of film, and I actually do find it very hard to find these non-hierarchical strategies to, like, it's not so hard when we are working, but yeah, when it's kind of finished and it's presented to kind of how to communicate it to other people, or how to communicate it in a dance field, or how to communicate the work in the film field, and yeah, it's kind of, I want to see some hope and some new possibilities in the things that Gita said. Like I was quite inspired by finding something new from the deconstructing of some structures that are that has been around for some time.
I heard in another talk recently, that someone said the edges are the new center. And actually what's happening is that the people who are now becoming in the new center don't necessarily know how to orientate themselves in the center, you know, because maybe we've never been there before. So yeah, perhaps there's something going on there. We literally have 2 minutes left. Am I right? We are hitting on time, and I'm going to be prompt and end. But one thing I really want to do right now, can everyone just reach up to the sky real quick, just for a second? And reach out to the side and circle your wrists into the camera. Let's use the Z-axis handography. Let's do the shoulders circling. Guys, we're making a screen dance right now. Faceography. Just a quick, yeah. Yep, lovely. Guys, I love you all. Look at the Screendance family coming together to have a conversation. Let's talk. Yes, a round of applause, please, for all of our panelists. Yeah, I thank you, Harmony and Alex, for welcoming me to moderate this talk and inviting some of my Power Rangers. You guys are all my Power Rangers, you know, and so let's keep working. It's morphin time. Yeah. And yes, look out in the chat. There's more information there. Click the 3 dots by the file button to save this chat, because we need to just look over this and maybe we post it somewhere and we can continue answering these questions. I think that would be fantastic. But once again, thank you all for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And let's keep having these conversations. Yeah. Well done to everyone. Thank you to Sandra, Vilma, James, Antoine, Alice. Have I missed anyone? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Love and light to you all. And yeah, let's keep it moving. We mold the modes to move our moving images. Nice. All right, wicked.